First of all, I want to tell something about Manmohana Prabhu. I know him from many years. Since I went to India, I'm seeing him doing so much service. He was doing so much service at the time of Srila Gurudeva, and especially in the kitchen. And even those who live in Holland, they know like oliebol is a sweet of Holland, a famous sweet. He was making for everyone also there. And in Govardhan, he was doing that. My mother just reminded me it was in Govardhan. And so he always, each time when I was seeing him, he was dedicated in Seva. And he lived so many years there in Govardhan, and he also served the Premananda Prabhu also for many years. So I am welcoming Manmohana Prabhu, and maybe he can explain how he met Srila Gurudeva and how he got attractive to him, and also some pastime with him. And so, Manmohana Prabhu.
Hello, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So nice to see you. Welcome. Manmohana Prabhu, as he said, he was saying that after so many years, he is coming so in the picture of speaking. He's not used to speak. So, but I know he has so many things in his heart which he can share. So he has 15 minutes to speak. If you like to share with us what you have experienced.
Yes,
especially how you met Srila Gurudeva first time.
Okay, so
how it felt like. So
just before I start, I will just try to I just explain a few words about what I was doing, and because if you know, I've heard many times from Vaishnavas, if you want to glorify your Gurudev, then you don't talk about your own glories. They're not even there. But so it's I feel very lucky that Sasikala actually asked me to speak, and then I actually thought this must be also some kind of opportunity and chance given again to me in this case, and I feel very grateful. But it's always also a little bit confronting with your present situation or condition. So the way I feel that what happened in the past was definitely Guru and Vaishnavas, sometimes they give opportunities and chances to serve them. And of course, there's many types of Vaishnavas also from different sampradayas, and also within the same sampradaya, many different levels of adhikars and qualifications. And I'm certainly on the bottom of the list. And I didn't know anything. I was not intellectual person or anything. And I'm convinced that Guru and Vaishnavas, they also know that. And that's why they just told me to do menial things. Like I just worked with my hands, and they told me to clean the floor and clean pots. And that's all I could do, really. So that's what I tried to do. And even that I didn't do perfectly. So but of course it started off when these opportunities come by and you get a chance and you say yes to it, then also there's many then this whole adventure starts happening. Anyways, for me already back in the day. Anyways, I'll start first. Sorry, that was just a little introduction. And thank you, Sasikala, again for introducing a little bit. And I hope some inspiration will come to say something kind of worthwhile. And also we have about 15 minutes now. And then who is speaking after this?
After this, we will have Uma Didi will speak, but we will have some Kirtan, and then Uma Didi will speak.
Okay. And actually that reminds me also, when I came in the beginning, when I started living there, also Srimati Uma Didi, she was living also in the ashram. And already she was a very senior person at that time, and this was about 20 years ago. And although I never had the fortune to have a lot of association with her, but she was always there always helping also with all kinds of different sevas in the ashram, and she definitely served among also many other wives, but she also especially she served also as a big inspiration for anyone that was living in the ashram. And of course, she's already that time she associated for more than 30 years or 40 years. I don't even know the exact amount of years, but I hopefully she will tell us a little bit. But it was like a big family back in the day, and still is, really. It still is, except that, now the family has branched out in many different, it's like one tree with many different branches, and not, just like different families, they don't know everything what everybody's doing, but ultimately we're all related. Anyways, I'll just offer one or two prayers, and then I'll see if I can remember a few things. So, Om Jnana Timrandasya Jnanandana Salakya Chakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Pancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Vandeyam Sri Guru Param Sri Rupanuga Pravaram Rajara Sarasikam Chanarayanam Tam Prapannam Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikai Tadaliye Krishnaya Krishna Bhattaya Tadabhattaya Namo Namah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kansini Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Visavana Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namah Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhatta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All right. So I also ask the devotees if there's anything that I'm saying wrong, then please also tell me and correct me if you be so kind. So I just say a couple words to put things a little bit in perspective. I met the devotees, the Hare Krishna devotees, and Srila Gurudeva disciples first when I happened to be traveling in Australia about 22 years ago. I was about 20 years old. I'm now 42. It's not relevant, but anyways, I was young, at least a lot younger than now. But I met people from the ISKCON temple, ISKCON society devotees, and I don't recall who they were disciples of exactly, but I started first encounter with devotees was with the Food for Life Center in Sydney, on King's Road in Newtown. What's it called? Newtown? I don't even recall exactly. But anyways, then I started eating every day at lunchtime. I had a free meal at the Food for Life program from ISKCON. And I came there and I started reading some books, and I got from one devotee. He was cooking every day there, and he gave me a biography of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And I wrote that book in one day. I read it, sorry. And after I finished that book, I was thinking, I want to meet this person. And then later on, I realized that he was not on the planet anymore. And I thought this was a very a sad thing and a missed opportunity. And I met some other devotees that time. I continued traveling to Melbourne, and I met one disciple of Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj. And we were friendly. It was a friendly interaction, and I invited him to. Well, he told me that he was going to visit several temples on the East Coast halfway, and so I offered him a ride. He already said he had a train ticket. He canceled it, and then he drove with me 2,000 kilometers up north, the East Coast. And as we were driving, he was explaining me. I didn't know anything. I still don't know anything, but And by the time we arrived in Byron Bay, it's halfway East Coast, then he took me to other devotees, and we finally arrived that night at one place where there was a place where there was many devotees, well, many disciples or people that wanted to associate or tried associating with Srila Gurudeva, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Gosvami Maharaj. And it was very special. We came in and there was a big kirtan going on, and it felt, yeah, quite amazing. And there was a fire in the, it was like an old football clubhouse. And then, so that was the first time I met, and many of those devotees there, they were disciples of Srila Gaura Swami Maharaj. Anyways, I'll shorten, it's a long story, but basically, one of the persons there, Premananda Prabhu, not Premananda Prabhu from India, but there was an Australian devotee called Premananda Prabhu, and he left to tour with Srila Gurudeva, who was traveling at that time. He started touring in 1996, I think. And I then basically he left the ashram, the small temple, the small clubhouse. And then the devotee that I was traveling with, Jagadish Prabhu, and he offered to take care of the temple, and I offered to help him doing that. So that's why I stayed there for a few months, and that's why I've learned the first little things about, you know, offering food and chanting, and I tried my best to do everything. And at some point, when some other devotees, there was a lot of different devotees, Muturanath Prabhu, Chandrakala, and many like Paramananda Puri and many disciples Srila Gaura Vinasamaras that were also seeing Srila Gurudev, and also disciples Srila Gurudev, and also tried going to India to meet them. And after 3 or 4 months staying there, then there was 2 disciples of Srila Gurudev that came. At that time, it was Subhasaka Prabhu and Prem Prayojan Prabhu. And later, Subhasaka Prabhu, he took sannyas, and his name became Bhaktivedanta Ban Maharaj. And later also Prem Prayojan, he also became a sannyasi. He was, what was his name again? Does anyone remember? Anyways, he left the sannyas later on, and he became
Aranya Maharaj.
Aranya Maharaj, yes, I'm sorry, thank you. And so I got the opportunity then to drive Bhaktivedanta Ban Maharaj, or at the time Subhasaka Prabhu, around. I had a car, and there was different programs held in the city, and I always fell asleep during the actual lectures, and I couldn't understand anything, but it was a very happy thing. And there was the chanting, and of course there was much prasadam, and that was my favorite thing, really. And of course, in between, I helped the devotees to, well, there was always something to do, and I tried to help them out with that. And so they stayed for a few weeks, and it was a very special time, and especially Aranya Maharaj that time, he really touched. He was talking to me personally and explaining many things, and also about staying in Mathura, in the ashram, in the case of the Gaudiya mat. And at that time already, I developed some desire to go there. And so soon after, when they left, I was invited by both, also by Bhaktivedanta Ban Maharaj and by Aranya Maharaj, of Prem Prayojan Prabhu, to come to India. But I didn't know how. I had this car, and so I sold my car, and I borrowed a little bit more money from some of the devotees, and I bought a ticket, and then we went all to India, and I traveled together with Premananda Prabhu to India. And I don't know, many of you have also visited, but when you go there for the first time, it's always a bit of a shock. And so we arrived, and we stayed in a house in Delhi with Ramchandra Prabhu. At that time, the ashram in Delhi wasn't there yet. And we took a train the next day, 2.5, 3 hours to Kesari Gaudiya Math. This was in 1999, or yes, 1999, I think. Yes, 1999, Kartik 1999. And so when we arrived, it was in the afternoon, early afternoon or something, and Gurudev was resting, and then Premananda Prabhu, he took me to Premananda Prabhu first. And until that time, for 3-4 months, all the devotees been so nice to me and always very respectful. And they said, "Oh, you're such a nice devotee, this and that." And I actually started thinking that I was kind of a great devotee, really. And then Premananda Prabhu looked at me and he was like, like he said something, and basically I understand that he was just looking at me and he was not happy about something, but he was very sweet, and not at that time immediately, but it really kind of made me thinking, and I was wondering, who is this person? And then then Premananda Prabhu from Australia, he asked Premananda Prabhu from Mathura when Gurudev would be giving a darshan and everything. And then, so that afternoon, that was the first time that I saw Srila Gurudev for real. And there is a whole story before this as well, because actually I went to India. I decided to go to India on the invitation of Jagadish Prabhu, who was a disciple of Srila Bhakti-Pramod Goswami Das, but he left. During that Kartik, I met Gurudev first, and then during that Kartik later on, like a month later or 3 weeks later, Srila Bhakti-Pramod Goswami Maharaj, he left his body. And when that news was told, I also felt very strongly that it was some kind of blessing as well, that I was able to meet Srila Gurudev, who was at that time still gonna give many devotees many years shelter. And whereas if I would have met Srila Bhakti-Pramod Goswami Maharaj, that might have gone in a very different way. Anyhow, long time. So that afternoon we took rest, and it was very hot, of course, and the prasadam was also spicy and things like that. But in the afternoon, then we met. I saw there was a big. I heard that Srila Gurudev was upstairs on the roof and giving a darshan, and I remember then walking up there quickly, and there was a big group of devotees around him, and I saw him from a distance, and immediately he looked with his very piercing eyes, and I was actually afraid of him. Afraid, I just was, yes, inside I felt afraid. I felt like he looked at me and he looked straight through me, and I didn't know what to think of it. And it was a very, in the beginning, a very strange experience, but it was also very powerful. It was very, the energy was so strong, and but again, I had no clue how to approach him properly or do anything really. Anyway, so that was just a week before the Brajamanda Parikrama started. And then, there was some opportunities. And at some point, devotees, they took me to Srila Gurudev and introduced me to him. And Gurudev, straight away, he gave a few, every time that in the next 5-6 weeks, every time when we used to go to Srila Gurudev, and someone would always take me with other, just like in the darshans, no personal meeting or anything, but then devotees, especially at some point there was a meeting with all the Australian devotees, and at that time I kind of was part of the Australian devotees, and then they explained me, introduced me a little bit, and then Gurudev would say certain things that I should be, should try to be a brahmachari and try to serve and things like that. So this was for me how it started back in the day. And then of course, so during that Kartik, there was many other occasions, and a person, like certain things that happened. And over the years, later on, I first lived 2 years in Birmingham temple. Well, in a very overview sort of thing, I stayed for during that Kartik time, and after that Kartik time, I went back with some devotees to Australia, and I still stayed there a few more months, traveling with some devotees, and there was some programs at different festivals. And then Gurudev, he visited Australia again, a big program. And that was another meeting where I met a lot of other devotees, and many of the senior sannyasis, senior devotees, and some the sannyasis at that time, they came there also. And after a few months, and then I asked Gurudev if I could stay in Birmingham, and then he said yes. And I asked him if he wanted to give me his mercy, and then he says, my mercy is very cheap, he said. But of course, and later I didn't understand what he was saying, and then later Prem Priyojani explained that it's actually not so easy. It's not like that. You just ask for mercy and it comes, which in a way, of course, we have to pray. But, and of course, I didn't know anything how to behave or what to even ask for. You know, it's not until that you receive association from the devotees, all the different types of devotees from all different levels. We can learn from everyone a little bit. And anyone that has a little faith and has a little service inclination, that, you know, they can always help us in some way. Anyhow, so I went then to Birmingham, to England, and stayed there for 2 years. And at some point, I wanted to actually leave the ashram because I was just not so happy, and I didn't understand why and what and how. And there was a big festival we organized in Wales one time, and also one time in Birmingham at a big Sikh temple, and we cooked a big feast every day, and Gurudeva was staying there for a week, I think. And yes, on all those different occasions, the programs, whenever Gurudev was present or about to come, always special things happened. After 2 years, I stayed in Birmingham. Then I moved to India. And that was also a very strange thing, how visas just came falling out of the air almost. And some devotees told me to write a letter. And so basically, I felt always from the moment that I met Srila Gurudev that really Gurudev's arranging all these opportunities. And if such an opportunity has not come directly, it will come at some point. And when it does, then you definitely understand it's something. Yes, I think all of you devotees must have similar experiences when meeting devotees, and some of you might have not met Srila Gurudev directly, but meeting his disciples. That is also I definitely believe that the real mercy of Srila Gurudev is an opportunity and a chance to associate with his really near followers, because they have a relationship. Whoever has some kind of relationship, and I have never had so much of a direct relationship with Srila Gurudev, but I definitely had a chance and to learn to appreciate a little bit about what it means to have a real relationship with Srila Gurudev. And the only thing, just like a father, when you're like a little baby, there's not much of a direct conversation going on because you cannot even speak the language or anything like that. But definitely, even a baby, sometimes he or she realizes that, you know, that his father or her father is doing everything and arranging everything, all the different, you know, for your food, for your shelter, for your association, and the different things that are coming on your path to learn. And so when I finally moved to India, that time Gurudev was all year around preaching all around the world. Many times he traveled the world around. And whenever he came back to India, that's the one thing I will relate. I don't know how much time you have left, but there was this special thing always when Gurudev would arrive in Delhi on the airport, or he mostly would come through Delhi when he was coming to Vrindavan. And always, and without, I mean, in Mathura, it doesn't rain a lot. It may be maximum 10 days a year, sometimes 2 weeks a year, and always during the rainy season. And the rainy season would start basically sort of Kartik time already before, but like rainy season again, it's 2-3 weeks in Mathura max, and it goes up to 50, 52, 54 degrees. It's very dry. But whenever Gurudev would arrive on Delhi and would come to Vrindavan, that day it would always, without any fail, and I've witnessed this for 7 more years, and several times also if he would come multiple times into India, it would always rain. And the air would always be clean and it would be free of dust. And it would cool down, so it was not so hot anymore, and a little bit cloudy, and a very light breeze. And this would always, without fail, and I know there's many other devotees that will testify to this, it would always happen. And every time it happened, I was always surprised, and it was always kind of very special. You knew that Gurudeva was coming. And also another thing that would always happen when Srila Gurudeva would come, like we would stay there all year round, and sometimes was not easy to do the daily services and cleaning pots, and it was always festivals multiple times a week, or at least 10, 12 times. We had always Ekadasis 2 or 3 times a month. And then we have, you know, all the festivals for the acharyas, appearance of Tirubhav and Avibhav titis. There would always be programs of minimum 100, 120 people. On Ekadasis, we have 400 people, and we would cook for Premanand Prabhu would arrange cooking, and Gurudeva would arrange cooking for everyone. And on all the different festival days and appearance days of any kind of, especially the big like Krishna Janmashtami and things, there would be so many programs. But I actually lost my train of thought there. But during I was first saying about the yes. So it would definitely the raining thing was something definitely that always was a very special occasion that I never understood how it was possible. But then later on we heard from Vaishnavas that this is not uncommon. And I've also heard a story about Srila Gurudeva Swami Maharaj, that he also went to Africa one time for a preaching program. And that was in an area in Africa. They had a drought for 5, 6, 7 years or longer, no rain. And the moment that Srila Gurudeva Swami Maharaj touches the earth, the ground in that place, I don't even recall where it was, but then it started raining, like serious raining, like pouring raining for, you know, a whole day or something. And anyways, there's undoubtedly many more things to say, and definitely more things related to bhakti and to the actual real glories of Uttama Bhagavat Vaishnavas in our disciplic succession. And but I'm just an ordinary aspiring devotee, and I hope to get some prasadam and some crumbs that I can chew on from Srimati Umididi and other devotees, so I can actually get something out of this as well. And I again want to thank the devotees for giving me a small opportunity to actually remember Guru and Vaishnavas, which in itself is already feels like an arrangement by Srila Gurudev. So thank you very much for this opportunity and chance. I hope you're happy with this.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the wonderful stories, how you met Srila Gurudeva, and also before also Subhasaka Brahmachari and Sripad Ban Maharaj, with him, Sripad Ban Maharaj, Premananda Prabhu also you met. All those that time in 1996, this was also a special time. This was also the first year also when I met Srila Gurudeva. And also you said about Premanand Prabhu, 2 Premanand Prabhu came in your life, one of Australia, one of Mathura.
Yes.
And so first you got mercy of Premanand Prabhu of Australia, and by that
yes.
guidance you had the other one, very exalted, so nice the sequence. And also invitation of Jagadish Prabhu, as a disciple of Prabhu Gosvami Maharaj. That year, I also had the desire to meet with Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, and I was lucky enough to meet with him before he went into Uppercut Leela.
In that year also.
Yeah, 1996. First time when I went to India that year after finishing Virgin Mandal Palikram, I went with my family with the train to Puri Goswami Maharaj. This was also a long journey with the train, and finally met with him. And but he was it was a very special darshan. But and also how you were explaining about Gurudeva when you first time met his blue piercing eyes, like the energy that you felt, because when I also know when Gurudev is looking in your eyes, it looks like he is looking directly in your soul. He knows what is going on. You know, he cannot hide anything from you.
No.
So that's why you felt like you became like afraid, when he looked in that way. Many devotees were experiencing the same things.
Yes, it was very strong. And later the Vaisavas were explaining to us that it is just like when you have a gold, they first, when you come nearby, Gurudev is like the fire, and when they find the gold in which is the soul, then when they find it in the earth, it's full of contaminations with other minerals, and it goes to the fire. And Gurudev was like that fire, and you could see with everybody, it was always happening.
Yes, very beautiful. And also the how you cooked also during festivals, not only in India, also in Western the country, like Birmingham. I remember that Sikh temple. I was also there. So yeah, the cooking was very nice. I can remember. So you were also assisting there, helping with cooking. So that I also remember. So very nice. All your all the details how you explained, also about the raining season. So everything so nice. Thank you so much. And I'm happy that you took your time to explain this. It's very beautiful memories of Srila Gurudev. Like speaking about Srila Gurudev, like purification of our heart, and getting Srila Gurudev closer to us. Actually, Gurudev is already close, but very good, very nice. And I'm thanking you very much for joining.
Thank you very much also. And when you also spoke to me 2 days ago, then it really felt that Gurudev, even though I forget Srila Gurudev in Vaisnavas most of the time because I choose to all kinds of other activities, but then when you called me, then I realized that Gurudev is definitely not forgotten me also. So therefore, thank you very much.
Also, one more thing I also add, when you one time you were cooking in Govardhan, like olive oil, and I remembered I was assisting you. I wanted to learn how you were making that because it's very, you have to be expert in making that. And I remember till very late in the evening, you were busy. Everyone was sleeping, you were busy. And one time I came there to help you. And I know there were lots of mosquitoes there. And even there were lots of mosquitoes biting everyone, but still you went further. I remember that even when I was there, so many mosquitoes were there, and even my ears, they had bitten in my ears. My ears became very big. It was already big, but it became bigger. So I came up the next day with very big red ears, and everyone asking what happened to you. So I said, oh, I was helping Manmohana Prabhu with olive oil, you know, making that sweet. So
yes,
that
I remember that very well, and it was very nice. I also remember we continued this until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes,
and we were doing it. There was two big cooking pots that.
Very big. I was very much surprised how you managed to do that.
And then the fire and the smoke all the time. My eyes, I couldn't close or open my eyes for the rest of the next day. They were so red.
Yes.
It took, many hours for it to go away. But
so many tapasya was there.
Yes, no, it was everything was tapasya for everyone in India.
Yeah, I'm very sure that Gurudev, you know, is very much pleased with you. So
well, that I don't know, but it was nice opportunities that Gurudev gave.
Yes, very special opportunities. So this we should keep always in our heart and meditate in the how you did service, how Srila Guru was at that time. So we should keep on meditating on Srila Gurudev.
Yes.
So thank you for your time. And I think, I don't know if Srimati Uma Didi is already there, permanently.
Yes,
permanently?
Already.
Yes?
You can do the introduction.